church, Palo, Pinto County Cowboy Church, where people greet you with a smile and a shake. Glory, hallelujah, oh, what a place.
Amen. Woo! All right, you excited to be in the house of the Lord this morning? Yeah. Amen. That's right, brother. This is not a Methodist church. You got that right. But I will tell you, Bill, we have managed to convert a few Methodists here, though. I guarantee you that. No. I convert a few more. Amen. I like that. I appreciate Bill being here with us this morning. And yes, normally you don't find cowboy preachers or preacher of any kind back on the drum, and I liked his comment about teaching you that at seminary, but I want to assure you guys of something, especially if you're visiting with us today. I did not learn that at the seminary. I don't want to tell you that right now. Whew, no, I'm not even going to tell you where I learned it, because some of you probably been there. Yeah, we all have a past, don't we? Thank God. Whew, man, I tell you what, good to see all of you here. I tell you what, I love having everybody here. I'm seeing some faces I haven't seen in a while, and welcome back. Welcome back. It's good to have you back. I mean, I always like seeing people come back, you know, and it's always good to come home, isn't it? Amen? Amen. You know what? We're going to read a couple of short scriptures. I'm not going to do it like I usually do it. Normally I read it at the front, and then we kind of talk about it from there. I'm going to read it towards the middle, if you'll let me do that. Is that all right with you? All right, but I'm going to go ahead and give you the first one so you can be there when we get there. It's Proverbs chapter 13. We'll be in verse 20. Proverbs chapter 13, verse 20. As you're finding that, I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story. A man arrives at the pearly gate. St. Peter takes his name and looks for his name in the book of life. By the way, this particular story is not theologically correct. So if you're going, wait a minute, that don't sound right, it ain't. Okay? All right, just want to tell you right now, it's not. Said, hey, buddy, I'm sorry to tell you, but I really can't find anything on you. It's not that I'm finding anything bad. I just can't find anything good either. He said, if you can tell me one thing you did on earth that was good, you're in. I can think of one thing right off. One time I was driving down the road and I saw a motorcycle gang surrounding this woman whose car had broken down. I pulled my car over, popped the trunk, pulled out a tire iron. Starting to sound familiar, isn't it? I ran over there, pushed through all the bikers, and said, if you want to get to her, you're going to have to go through me. Then I bonked one of the bikers on the head with that tire iron. St. Peter said, wow, that's pretty impressive. So when did that happen? He said, about 3 minutes ago. Amen, right? Yeah. Wow. We're in a series called, if you're visiting us for the first time, welcome. We're about knee deep right now in a series called Big Faith. I tell you what, I know God wants all of us to have big faith, and we said we want to have it like Texas-sized faith. Amen? I tell you what, everything is bigger and better in the state of Texas. And if you ain't from here, you just stick around and we'll prove you right. We'll prove we're right about that, all right? So anyway, yeah, we want to have Texas-sized faith. Last week we said God is in the process of trying to grow big faith in each one of us. If you got your pen and your handout, I'm going to give you some things I want you to write down if you didn't write them down last week, okay? If you wrote them down last week, hopefully you can remember what they are. But there are 5 things that God uses to grow big faith in us. All right? Practical teaching is number 1. Practical teaching. We talked about this last week. And I had some people come by the door and say, man, were you mad? I hope I didn't come across mad last week, because I didn't mean to come across mad at all. But I do think it's a serious topic, isn't it? You know? And it's called practicing what we're preaching. Right? Yes, exactly. So practical teaching. Today we're going to talk about something, and this will hopefully help you a little bit, called providential relationships. That's number 2. So you can write that down on your handout, providential relationships. And then next week we'll talk about if we have time. By the way, let me just tell you real quick what's going to happen next week. Keep your pen ready. But I got to advertise this a little bit. We're going to do a little bit more music next week. Y'all okay with that? Yeah. Normally, I bring in somebody to do music or some kind of something on the chili cook-off, the annual chili cook-off, and we decided we keep doing that, and yet we have one of the best bands in the county, right? You know? So we thought that was kind of stupid. So we're just going to let our band play a little bit longer next week, if you're all right with that. All right? Good. You know, I don't know, you may get to hear a 10-minute sermon. You may just get up and have prayer and have chili next week. I don't know what we're going to do, you know. But either way, you'll be happy to be here, right? Amen? Yeah. All right, good. All right, where was I? No, number 3, private disciplines. Private disciplines. Now, what this is, those things we do when nobody else is watching. Well, that's going to be a fun one, isn't it? All right? I can already hear your enthusiasm. Yeah, those things we do. You know, you and I, it's one thing to come to church and act one way and do a certain thing, but it's another whole different ball game to go home and maintain that kind of stuff, isn't it? Amen? But we're going to talk about that maybe next week or the week after. It kind of depends. Number 4, personal ministry, your ability to help someone else grow in their faith. This will kind of tie in with today's. And then finally, number 5, pivotal circumstances. Those things in our life, either good or bad, that grow our faith. And I'm going to promise you, I could go through this room with several different people in here, and they will tell you there are particular things that have happened in my life or right around me that have certainly grown my faith. Amen? Yep, so we're going to talk about some of those. All right, good. So my guess is if you just started your faith journey with Jesus Christ, or you've been a believer or a Christ follower for some time, these are some things that God has used or God will continue to use to help grow your faith. How many of you would like to see your faith bigger than what it is? All right, good. For those of you not raising your hand, we'll get to you here in a minute, okay? All right. That's all right. I got you. Now, I have this question. If y'all don't mind, I'm going to come down here. How many of you feel lucky? You're just the luckiest person in the world. I mean, it doesn't matter what you touch. Every single thing just seems to go right for you. Let me see a hand. Let me see. Yeah, you're the epitome of the opposite of that. I'll get to you in a minute. I got something special for you. Let me see a hand. How many of you just feel extremely lucky? Extremely lucky. Extremely lucky. Extremely lucky. All right, let me give you another one. How many of you met the love of your life the very first time you ever went on a date? Where's Kevin? I want to make sure Kevin's raising his hand. His anniversary's today. Oh, okay. All right. Let's see. I'm kind of narrowing it down. How many of you like playing the lottery? You believe you're so lucky that every time I want to preface this a little bit more. I'm going to narrow it down some. Every time you play the lottery, at least 9 out of those 10 times you win. Let me see a hand. You win something. Okay, 8 out of 10 times you win. Charles, do you? You win all the time? All the time? Well, good. I got one. Now, I want to tell you something. I went to the store, bought a scratch-off ticket, and the lady that sold me this scratch-off ticket knows I'm a preacher. So I had to do some explaining. And I explained to her, no, I'm not fixing to go in here and, say, hey, let's all go gambling, okay? That wouldn't be good here. But I need this ticket because I want to do something today. I want to see just how lucky this young lady is. Y'all want to see how lucky she is? All right. Now, I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to tell you something before I give you this. Should you win anything? Well, it's not mine. We're going to build another building over here, okay? I just want you to know that. But you let me know here in a minute what you come up with. Go ahead and scratch that off for me, all right? I'm going to see just how lucky she is, because I tell you what, some of us feel like that we run our whole lives on luck, don't we? Oh, I got quiet. Yeah, sometimes we think that. Well, I was lucky to have met that girl in high school because she became my wife. Right? Boy, I tell you what, if I hadn't run into so-and-so, I wouldn't even have a job right now. I am so lucky. I am so lucky that I ran into them. Thank you. Thank you, dear. Y'all, the rest of you just lying. I know you are. All right? I guess. All right. She's going to tell me here in a minute what she's found out, and I'm going to keep going, but you holler at me here in just a second. But I think folks have a tendency to think luck has way too much to do with every single thing that happens to them. And I'm going to tell you something. This is a preacher. You're not going to find this in the Word because this is the gospel according to Roger. Okay? You ready? Yeah. Luck is a bunch of bull. I do not believe in luck, and I'm going to tell you why. If there was a Corvette drawing, okay, and I love Corvettes, I like fast cars, okay, but if there was a Corvette drawing, let's just say there were 4 Corvettes. Let's say there were 4 Corvettes, and they were selling 3 tickets. I still wouldn't win a Corvette. I never won a thing in my entire life. Never. Okay? And it's not from the lack of trying. But I'm going to tell you something that I have. I have been blessed beyond belief. Blessed beyond belief. Wow. Yeah. Man. Of course, that blessing is a whole other sermon. But today I want to visit about folks who come in and out of our lives. Those special people that come in and out of our lives that help build our faith. But I want to tell you something. They can also break your faith down. Right now, you've got somebody just came to mind, don't you? You sure do. Yeah. I think some of those folks are like fender benders. All right? They appear as though we ran into them by some kind of accident. You know, I really didn't intend to run into this person, but it was like a fender bender. I just kind of accidentally did. Right? You know what I'm talking about? And then some of those kind of people are like head-on collisions, aren't they? You couldn't have missed them if you tried. I mean, they were in your path, and you ran headlong right in front of them, right? You know what I'm talking about? Okay, guys, I'm going to tell you something. For those of you visiting, thank you. Somebody got this just before I had to say it. This is yes, this is no. I don't care if you say anything, but I at least need some kind of head nod. All right? All right, good. All right, there we go. Okay, here's what I want you to do. Participation time. You still got your handout. Participation time. I want you to write down on your handout someone God used to make your faith bigger or stronger. Someone that God used to make your faith bigger or stronger. I'm going to give you just a second. It could be a conversation. It could be somebody you watched. You know, maybe you were just watching somebody and went, wow, you know what? I'd like to have a faith like that. I'd like to be able to lose a loved one, or I'd like to be able to go through a situation like that in my life and come out the other side knowing that God's in control. You know, and you're just watching that. Maybe it's somebody like that. Maybe you watched how they lived. If you're here today and you're saying, wow, wait a minute, hang on, preacher. I'm not real sure that I'm into this faith thing just yet. You see, I haven't signed up to be a Jesus follower yet, and you're asking me to do something that I am just not really sure if I'm ready to do. Well, hang on. There is somebody that brought you to church today. There's somebody that brought you. There's somebody that's been asking you to come. Hey, look, you don't have to do anything. They got donuts. I mean, how good can you get? Just come to church with me, all right? I'll give you coffee. I'll get you some donuts. You can sit in the back if you want to sit in the back. And by the way, not all the heathens are in the back, okay? I know but you can sit in the back. You don't even have to come up here, you know. And you know, it's over before you know it. And the band's good. The preacher's over here, okay, but the band's good, you know. But you came. That person right there, I want you to think about that person for just a minute. That is a connection for you this morning. Amen? Amen. All right, good. Whether you recognize it or not, here's a big word. Whether you recognize it or not, God had something to do with that. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't you're lucky, or maybe you're here with somebody you feel like you're unlucky, but it's not your lucky day. God intervened in your life and put somebody in your path this morning that said, hey, come be a part of this. I want you to hear this. Amen? All right. Good. Some of you are real glad they did it, and some of you are kind of wishing they hadn't. I guarantee you. Yeah. All right, I want to move on. So let me give you mine, and I'm glad I get to say something this morning that Dan and I haven't got a chance to say yet to publicly to everybody. We're extremely glad to get to have our resident Army guy home. After 8 years, they're moving home. You know, Joe and Sabrina West. So I want to tell you a little bit of a story about myself, and I want you to see why luck has absolutely nothing to do with relationships, especially divine relationships, especially relationships that are providential. Many of you know about my background, and maybe if you're visiting here today, you don't. And so if you've heard it 1,000 times, this is 1,001. But I'm going to be brief. I grew up in a Christian home. I grew up going to church. I grew up understanding what faith is. I grew up practicing faith until I was 18 years old. When I turned 18 years old, I didn't want anything else to do with the church, God, or faith. Zero. All right? I thought, I'm going to go on my way. I've seen enough stuff. Now, I got to tell you, I've told you before, I told you a while ago, that sometimes there are people that have a tendency to push us in the opposite direction of growing our faith. They have a tendency to break it down. And I'm going to be honest with you guys. The church broke mine down. The church did it. I watched a lot of people throughout, when I started really paying attention, junior high and high school, I watched a lot of people that were in church not be godly people. All right? And as I watched that, I kept thinking to myself, the minute I turn 18 years old, the minute that I'm not having to be responsible to go to church, I ain't going no more. And I didn't. From 18 till roughly about 40, is that right? About 40 years old, I said, I'm not having anything to do with it. I got in the bars. I started going, everything that was opposite of growing my faith is what I did. Can some of you relate to that? Now, after about 20, 22 years of doing this, I had somebody come into my life that was a providential relationship. And it was not only a providential relationship for me, but it was a providential relationship for my wife. And we used to use Sundays, as many people do, as an opportunity to veg out, eat, watch football, and pretty much do nothing. You know what I'm talking about? That was my Sunday. It was my day to kind of recuperate. The last thing I really wanted to do was go to church. But God showed up with a relationship, a providential relationship for me and for Dana, and I'll tell you how this relationship went. It was Sabrina. Sabrina said, Mom, Dad, I want to go to church. And I'm thinking, oh, no. No, well, let's go any place but that. Let's go out to eat. Let's go do anything but that. And Sabrina goes, no, I want to go to church. In fact, I'm going to go to church. And she started going. And I'm thinking, oh boy, because one thing about God is when God gets a hold of you, God never turns loose of you. You never notice that? You can wander as far away as you want to go. You just keep walking because He's right there. He's ready to grab you. Amen? And so Dan and I, we got to talking about this, and we said, well, you know what? Maybe we ought to go to church with her. That's, that is the right thing to do, And so we started going to church. And I'm going to tell you right now that the providential relationship that I have with Sabrina is why your preacher's here right now. Had she not done that, had God not used her to start building my faith and building Dana's faith, I promise you we wouldn't be here. We'd still be using Sunday afternoons to veg out on the couch and watch football, you know, or do something else right now. But you see how God puts people in our lives, and sometimes you don't, and I don't even know that, do we? We don't even see it. At the time, I wouldn't have said that. At the time, it was kind of a hindrance for me. But right now, looking back, it's like, yes, God's hand, providential hand, was right on top of that situation. And he knew what was going to move me in the direction that he wanted me to go. And he knew who could do that. Right? Yeah. Very good. Very good. Now, most of us think Christianity and faith is for old people. Boy, none of you are going to say that, are you? Well, let me tell you how I know this. I'm going to be honest with you. I was this way. And let's see if you will agree after I tell you what I'm fixing to say. I wasn't done having fun. I wasn't done sinning. I wasn't done doing what I wanted to do. I wasn't done being the person I wanted to be, not who God wanted me to be. And I kept thinking, well, you know what? When I get old and don't have any sinning else to do, or it's no longer appealing to me because I'm old, then I'll go back to church. Now, you can't say that about this section over here because we got a bunch of young people over here, amen? Right here. And I'm glad for that. But you know what? A lot of us think that. A lot of us think that when sin becomes unappealing, we reach that age, it becomes unappealing, then I'll go back to church and then I'll work on my faith. Yes, preacher, that's right. Amen. God uses people in your life, using people in my life to supersize our faith, doesn't he? Amen? Amen. Now, the opposite is also true. The opposite is also true, as I said. Has there been anybody in your life, and by the way, don't lie, because most of you that have become members of this church, you told me your story, and I've heard this story more than you would ever possibly know. There's a lot of you in here that are very similar. That you have come from either some kind of church or some kind of relationship with somebody or some kind of background that has caused you to move as far away from faith in Jesus Christ or building your faith as you could ever possibly want to be. And it was usually somebody, a relationship of some kind, whether it was a pastor, a parent, a child, an acquaintance, or whatever. It's usually some type of a relationship that's caused you to say, look, I am no longer interested in building my faith anymore. Amen? Think about it for just a minute. As a result of that particular relationship, you believe less. In other words, you're just not growing in your faith at all. You found yourself further from God. And let's face it, if we were to trace back our greatest regret, that one thing that we can say ultimately defined the direction that we were going in our life for the negative, we could trace it back to a relationship with somebody. Amen? Now, very rarely does anybody ever say, hey, my greatest regret I did on my own. I was in total isolation. Nobody influenced me at all. I just messed up on my own, and here I am. Most of us can't say that. We were influenced by somebody, right? Somebody did that. Yeah, okay, good. The habits we have a hard time breaking usually are caused by influence of somebody else. Relationships intersect with our faith for either good or bad. One or the other. Now, I got to thinking how I could demonstrate this. All right? And if you want to think that my buying the lottery ticket from this lady that I know caused her eyebrows to go up, you ought to see in the Gordon hardware store when I walked in wanting to buy a PVC pipe. Because they're thinking this guy is fixing to make a mess of something. I guarantee you he is. But I thought this is the best way to do it. You see, we're kind of a catalyst or a funnel for stuff, aren't we? You know, that's either good or bad, by the way. You know, and the way I kind of saw this is that this might be me. And if I've got faith building going on in my life and I begin to share that with somebody, I become a catalyst for somebody to get faith building. Right? Amen? Now, we'll just say this is the person right here. This right here happens to represent the person that I'm talking to. All right? Now, the good part about this is that as I begin to funnel what I know about faith in God to somebody else and start to grow their faith gets bigger. And look what they do. They start funneling it off to somebody else, don't they? Amen? Now, and so on. It's like putting together a puzzle. And so on. So I started my faith journey here. But as I got to here, I influenced not only this guy, but 2 other people, who then influenced this guy and 2 other people. This is how the kingdom of heaven grows right here. Amen? Just like that. How many of you, I didn't see, I'm back here behind all this equipment and stuff. How many of you, this is your very first time here? Raise them high so I can see them. Okay, I got to tell you something. All right? Now, this preacher right here, I'm not your ordinary preacher. And sometimes I say some things that an ordinary preacher wouldn't say, okay? And I'm about to, okay? And so I'm giving you kind of a word of warning, all right? I'm going to use the King James Version of this so you will understand and maybe it won't offend you quite so much, okay? The Bible says that if we pass our faith on to somebody else, we're just like living water. Just like living water. In other words, we're just flowing right through here and it just continues to flow. But you and I know that not only will water flow through here, but crappeth do too. Amen? You can either be living water or sewage water. It's really up to you, but the same principle still applies here. You see, I can be crappeth, and I can share my crappeth with this guy who shares it with 2 other people, who shares it with 2 other people. And now we got crap all over the place, don't we, right? Or I can share living water, and all of a sudden God's kingdom starts to grow. Amen? Amen. Yeah. All right. I thought that was a good demonstration. You know, trying to be creative as I know how to be. Yeah. Oh, every single day we're around all kinds of people for all particular kind of purposes and practical purposes. And some of them really even care less about our faith, don't they? Some of them do. And they do have the potential to undermine yours and my faith. There's no doubt. We're living in a culture that's not pushing us towards living water and more faith in God. As a matter of fact, I would say we were living in a culture that is pushing the other stuff, the sewage through here, right? Amen? Yeah. I think that they made faith and relationships disposable just like everything else. Think about it for a minute, guys. How many people do you not talk to anymore? How many people have you had the opportunity to build your faith and you just thought, you know what, that's just too much trouble. I'm not going to get in the middle of that. Maybe it was an ex-husband, an ex-wife or something like that, and you just said, you know, I'm not going to put the time into this. You know, our relationships are just like our culture. We think they're expendable, they're disposable. We can just get rid of them anytime. But God says, you know what? I put that person in front of you or with you for you to build their faith and be an influence on. Especially you men. Boy, I figured I'd get something out of the ladies at least. Guys, I tell you what, it's your spiritual responsibility, according to the Bible, to build the faith in your family. It's your responsibility to do that. All right, I know that's not a popular subject. Rarely are any of us tempted to do the right thing, are we? You ever been tempted to do the right thing? Now, some of you, wait a minute. Think about that for just a second. Do you just do it, or are you tempted to do it? More times than not, I think we just do the right thing. I think we're tempted to do the wrong thing, right? Amen? Okay, yeah. Okay, maybe not. Even our nature seems to move against our faith. Our nature seems to move against the fact that God is in control, doesn't it? Sure does. And truly, I think that's why so many folks think it's luck rather than some kind of providential relationship, because we don't even understand God's authorship in all this, do we? We don't. You good with? Y'all good so far? Okay, good. All right. Now, here's what I think we should be thinking. If there's a relationship that I have or could have that would have a greater effect on somebody's confidence in God, that's the relationship I need to have. Amen? Amen. And, you know, I had a youth minister do this. I've done this a couple of times. Chuck and Carol probably remember this, Mom and Dad. Some people that have been here a long time ago. Aaron, come here for a minute. I'm going to do it again. Y'all all right? All right, good. Stand up in that chair for me, buddy. No, face me. Yeah. I know. I got him. Now, this is the way I had this explained to me, and this is the best way I know how to explain it. This is the relationships that you and I have. Some of those relationships are good, and some of them are bad. And I guarantee there's somebody in here this morning that has a relationship with somebody that's just as ornery as a chained up dog. Amen? And you've been doing your dead level best to try to change them, haven't you? Amen? You've been doing your best. You know, so why don't you grab me right here? Now pull me up on that chair with you. You know, that's kind of tough, isn't it? And yet, what I can do, thank you, sir, that's what happens. You see what that was? It's a whole lot easier for them to take you down than for you to take them up. Amen? You got to be careful with that. Those providential relationships that God puts in our lives are people that we need to minister to, but you got to be careful to make sure that they're not jerking you down and blowing your faith, but you're building their faith up. Amen? Amen. Good. All right. 2 verses today I'm going to talk about. Proverbs chapter 13, verse 20. And I'm going to have you stand. We're going to read both of these. They're short. Proverbs chapter 13, verse 20. Gentlemen, if you'll remove your cover in honor of God's word, that's why we do this. We do this when we pray. We do this when we read God's word. It is his holy word that we're reading. Amen. Chapter 13, verse 20 says, walk with the wise. Walk with the wise and become what? Walk with the wise and become what? For a companion of what? Suffers harm. If you're going to walk with stupid people, you're going to have stupid problems. If you're going to walk with foolish people, expect to be a fool. But if you want to be wise, have good companionship, walk with the wise. Yes, preacher. That's yeah, amen. Thank you. 1 Corinthians 15:33, another short one but a good one. 1 Corinthians 15:33. I'll give you a minute to find it since I didn't tell you ahead of time. But it's actually up here on the screen if you can't find it. So I'm going to go ahead and read it. Do not be misled. Bad company corrupts good character. Let's pray. Father, thank you so much for this time together, Father, in the few minutes that we have left. Father, I just pray that these 2 verses will speak to our hearts. Father, as we've taught this morning, about providential relationships. Father, I just pray that you would penetrate our hearts, our minds, and our souls, that as we leave this place today, we will grow not only our faith, but somebody else's. In Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen. Thank you. You may be seated. Amen. Walk with the wise and become wise. For a companion of fools suffer harm. Come on, guys, let me ask you this question. Those of you who are rowdy like me, how many of you are rowdy like me once upon a time? Okay, good. I want to tell you, and I got to move this or I'm fixing to fall right over it. But I got to tell you, I ran with some pretty shady characters. I still do, by the way, but that's a whole other story. But, yeah, I ran with some pretty shady characters, and I'm going to tell you, I didn't suffer harm until I started running with fools. Oh, that's a whole other deal. Oh, well, I thought they'd get more of a rise, but it didn't. Some of you just don't want to admit it, do you? You know what I mean? For a companion of fools suffers harm, walk with the wise. I tell you what, when I started walking with the wise, when I started getting around wise people, it is amazing the difference that it made in me and my faith. It is. I started listening. I started growing. I started saying, that stuff I used to do 10, 15 years ago, that ain't good. It changed me. It made me a different person. And it did because I was walking in the company of people that had wisdom about God, not wisdom about all the other stuff. And as they began to talk to me and groom me and show me the error of my ways, which were many, I began to grow. You know, and my mom will tell you, you know, that we talked about me being a preacher a long time ago. I don't know how long ago that was, but it was a long time ago. You know, and I think had I stayed in the company of wise people, I would have been a preacher much longer than I am. I would have been. There's no doubt about it. But I got in the company of fools and started doing foolish things. Amen? Okay. All right. Yours and my greatest regret in life was done in the presence of somebody that was a fool. It just was. Now, here's the promise of this verse. The people you surround yourself have the potential to impact you spiritually, do they not? Don't they? Yeah. Think about the people you're around right now. I want to promise you something. The people that you are in church with this morning have the potential to impact your life spiritually. They do. They do. All right. The second one was 15:33 in 1 Corinthians. Do not be misled. Bad company. How many, I just had to ask this question. How many of you are old rockers at heart and remember that rock band called Bad Company, right? That's more than I thought. That's pretty good. That's not what it's talking about. I'm not talking about the rock band. We're talking about those people that you've been around and I've been around, just like we saw Aaron demonstrate just a minute ago. Those people that you and I have been around that we kind of stay around just because they've been friends or what we call quote-unquote friends for a while. And the thing that they do, the more you hang around with them, the more they tear you down. Amen? You know what I'm talking about? Paul's talking about that. Because it says, bad company corrupts good character. You could be the best person in the world and hang around the wrong people, and eventually you're going to be the worst person in the world. Amen? Okay. Human relationships can have a negative spiritual impact. Now, I want to tell you one more quick story and we're going to close, but I want you to listen to this, okay? You ready? Listen carefully. I love the story of Job. I absolutely love the story of Job. And most of you have heard the story. How many of you heard the story of Job? You know all about the story of Job. Okay, go. Some of you haven't. That's all right. I'm going to tell you real quick the story of Job. Job was an awesome dude. Job had everything. Job had a wife, kids. He had a bunch of farm animals, big ranch. Job was wealthy. He was a man of influence. I mean, he had it going on. He was a man's man. You know what I'm talking about? He's all that in a bag of cookies. But he was a good guy. And God honored him because Job was an obedient fella too. You know, see, Job had big faith. And Job was sitting down there one day just enjoying his relationship with God and all this stuff that God had blessed him with. And Satan came along and began to kind of look at Job and said, and God said, hey, have you ever considered my servant Job? This guy is awesome. He's killer. He is just so good. I mean, he worships. He honors me with everything he does. He's such a good guy. And Satan, you got to know Satan was doing something like this. Well, yeah, if I had all that stuff, if I didn't have any issues in my life, if I had all the wealth I wanted, all the influence I wanted, I'd worship you too. But I wonder if Job would worship you if he didn't have all that stuff. Remember the story? Yeah. Now, most preachers concentrate on that part of it, but I'm not going to, because there's a second part to this story. Job had some buddies. Job had 3 friends, the Bible tells us in Job chapter 16. If you want to look over there, you can. The so-called friends of Job, Eliphaz, Temanite, and Bildad. And I would have made some new friends if I had friends that name too, but anyway. Job had these 3 guys. They were good friends of Job's. You know, and they hear about all the catastrophe that's happening with Job, and they come over and they kind of, you know, they kind of wrap their arm around old Job like this, and they kind of go, poor Job. Poor Job. Man, that dude had everything. You know, he's lost his family. He's lost his wife. All of his farm animals are gone. He's lost his wealth. I mean, he ain't got nothing. And then they started going, I wonder what old Job did. What'd old Job do? Job, you must have done something, buddy. You've ticked off God somehow. This don't just happen to normal people. You had to have done something, right? Now, there's a long course of discussion between these 3 friends and Job. I mean, you can go almost halfway through Job, and they're talking back and forth. They're telling him, oh, maybe it's just you don't have enough faith. Or, Job, maybe you did something wrong, and God's punishing you for that. And they go back and forth till one friend of Job's, Elihu, steps up and says, hey, guys, I'm tired of hearing all this. I am sick and tired of hearing that. By the way, Elihu was a younger fella, too. He wasn't one of these old guys with lots of wisdom. He was one of these younger fellas. And he does a speech at the end. He was angry at Job and his 3 friends, at Job for trying to justify himself, at the friends because they condemned Job unfairly. Elihu argued that Job's sufferings were instructive, meant to draw him into a deeper knowledge of God. Listen to this. Which friends were building him up, and which friends were tearing him down? Job had 4 good friends that the Bible mentions in this particular chapter, or chapters, book. And 3 of them had sewage running through this. And one guy had living water. And it built Job's faith up. And Job began to realize at the end of this book, you know what? Who am I to question God? Who am I? You know, and I got to think that somewhere along the end of Job's life, he was thankful for that young man. You know, he was thankful for that young man that stood up and said, you know what, Job? You got it all wrong, buddy. You're listening to the wrong group of friends. God's still in control. God's still working. And it doesn't matter what happens to you. God will see it through. Amen? Mary and her husband Jim had a dog named Lucky. Lucky was a real character. Whenever Mary and Jim had company for the weekend, They would warn their friends not to leave their luggage open because Lucky would help himself to whatever struck his fancy. Inevitably, someone would forget and something would come up missing. Mary or Jim would go to Lucky's toy box in the basement, and there the treasure would be amid all of Lucky's other favorite toys. Lucky always stashed his finds in the toy box, and he was very particular that his toys stay in the box. It happened that Mary had found out she had breast cancer. Something told her she was going to die of this disease. In fact, she was just sure it was fatal. She scheduled a double mastectomy, fear riding her shoulders. The night before she was to go to the hospital, she cuddled with Lucky. A thought struck her. What will happen to Lucky when I'm gone? Although a 3-year-old dog like Jim, he was Mary's dog through and through. And if I die, Lucky will be abandoned, Mary thought. He won't understand that I didn't want to leave him. The thought made her sadder and thinking of her own death. The double mastectomy was harder on Mary than her doctors had anticipated, and Mary was hospitalized for over 2 weeks. Jim took Lucky for his evening walk faithfully, but the little dog just drooped, whining and miserable. Finally, the day came for Mary to leave the hospital. When she arrived home, Mary was so exhausted she couldn't even make it up the steps to her bedroom. Jim made his wife comfortable on the couch and left her to nap. Lucky stood watching Mary, but he didn't come to her when he was called. It made Mary very sad, but sleep soon overcame her and she dozed off. When Mary woke up for a second, she couldn't understand what was wrong. She couldn't move her head and her body, and she felt heavy and hot. Panic soon gave way to laughter when Mary realized the problem. She was covered, literally blanketed, with every treasure Lucky owned. While she had slept, the sorrowing dog had made a trip after trip after trip to the basement, bringing his beloved owner all his favorite things in life. He had covered her with his love. Mary forgot about dying. Instead, she and Lucky began living again, walking further and further together every day. And it's been 12 years now, and Mary is still cancer-free. And Lucky, well, he still treasures and stashes the toys in the toy box. But Mary remains his greatest treasure. Now, I tell you this story to tell you this. You know, we need to live every day to the fullest, don't we? Each minute is a blessing from God. Never forget the people who make the difference in our lives, who build our faith. And they're usually not the ones with all the credentials. They're usually not the ones with all the money or the most rewards. But they are the ones that care for us the most. Now, if you see somebody today without a smile, give them one of yours. Give them one of yours. Live simply, love seriously, care deeply, speak kindly, and leave the rest to God. Amen. Let's go to the Lord in prayer. Father, I just thank you so much for this day. And Father, I just pray that there be somebody here today, Father, that just needs that relationship with you. Father, they wouldn't leave this place today before they've come to the realization, Father, it was not luck that brought them here today, it was you. Father, through a providential relationship, through a friend, through a loved one, Father, they are here, and they are here to have a one-on-one audience with you. Father, I pray today that their heart would be open, their mind be clear. Father, as you just speak to them in this quiet moment. And Father, as you speak, I pray that they would open up. They would open up to you. They would open up to the fact that you love them so much that you sent your only Son to die for them. And Father, as they open up to that, and they realize that they need that, I pray that we would pray a very simple prayer. Father, I am a sinner. Father, I've done a lot of things in my life. In fact, I've even been the person, the catalyst for people to even lose their faith. But Father, today I want to start brand new. I want to start brand new in you, and I want to be the catalyst, Father, for building somebody's faith. But Father, I want to start it with you today. Father, come into my heart. Change my life. I believe you died on the cross for my sin. I believe that you rose from the grave, and I believe that you are the King of kings and you are the Lord of lords. Father, help me to change. Help me to turn away from my sin. Help me to be different than I was when I came in here. Father, I love you and I praise you. In Jesus Christ's name, amen. Now, I wanted to ask you if you'll just bear with me a minute. We've had somebody that has given their life to Christ, and you are going to get to be part of baptism this morning. Amen? Amen.
Thank you for watching this week's message, and we hope you'll come and give us a look this Sunday. Here you'll find some of the finest country gospel music in the state of Texas, along with good, sound, Bible-based preaching. And I promise, you'll always be greeted with a handshake and a smile. Won't you come join us this Sunday at 10:30 a.m. and we'll have the coffee ready.